There are days stitched into the fabric of time that carry a sacred energy, a quiet calling, a divine invitation. July 1st is one of them, and if you dare to speak the right words on this day, the heavens will lean in to listen. Time, child, is not just a march of seconds and hours, not just the turning of calendar pages or the ticking of a clock on the wall. Time is alive. It breathes, it remembers, it holds echoes and whispers and hidden doors. There are days that carry more than dates. They carry destiny. They arrive wrapped in silence but heavy with meaning. Days when the veil between the spiritual and the physical becomes thinner. Days when the divine is closer. Days when the winds of change move softer but with more intention. These are not ordinary days. These are portals. You must not treat every day the same, for not every day holds the same power. Some days are appointed, some days are drenched in divine orchestration. July 1st is one of those days, a threshold day, a bridge between what has been and what could be. The first half of the year has passed. It carried your triumphs and your tears, your silent battles and your unseen victories. But now the calendar turns, not just to a new page, but to a new posture, a new opportunity, a spiritual checkpoint where the universe leans in and asks, what will you do with the rest of this year? If you move through this day like any other, you'll miss the invitation, because divine days do not shout, they whisper. They come cloaked in normalcy but loaded with potential. You must learn to listen with your soul, not just your ears. You must be still enough to hear the call, to sense the shift, to know in your bones that something in the unseen is waiting for your agreement. Time may move in circles, but destiny moves in doors. And there are doors that only open when you arrive in alignment, with your spirit ready, your heart surrendered, and your words full of truth. Time has memory. It remembers the vows you made in January that you abandoned in March. It remembers the prayers you whispered in April, the tears you wept in May, the strength you gathered in June. And it does not condemn, it records, it waits. Because time is not cruel, it is sacred. It offers again what you missed before. It brings back chances you thought were lost, but only if you have the eyes to see and the courage to respond. July 1st is not just another sunrise, it is a return, a holy revisiting of everything you thought had passed you by. You must meet this day with reverence, with readiness, not with fear, not with regret, but with sacred expectancy. You must understand that there are divine patterns that do not move according to human logic. There are blessings that show up at the same point in the spiritual cycle every year, waiting for someone awake enough to claim them. You may have been tired yesterday. You may have felt forgotten last week, but today, this day, carries an entirely different frequency. It is pregnant with the power to push you into purpose. But like any birth, you must labor, you must breathe, you must speak what you believe and walk in what you've declared. Because some days pass and others call. July 1st is not a date, it is a door. And if you honor it, if you approach it with open hands and a willing heart, you will find that time is not just a current moving forward. It is a circle returning with another chance, another breath, another blessing, and you are invited to step through. Words are not empty. They are not harmless, casual whispers drifting on the air like dust, with no destination. Words are power, alive and fertile. They are seeds. And every time you speak, you are planting. You are casting into the soil of your own life, the atmosphere of your home, the rhythm of your days. What you say today will either bless or bind tomorrow. Words don't vanish after they leave your lips. They linger. They take root. They grow into things that will one day greet you again, sometimes in joy, sometimes in sorrow, sometimes in a harvest of pain you forgot you ever planted. You see, the world may have tricked you into believing that venting your frustration, repeating your fears, or casually speaking doubt has no real consequence. That saying, "I'll never be enough," or "things never work out for me," or "I'm always alone," is just releasing pressure. But what you call venting, the universe calls planting. What you call harmless, the spirit world calls instruction. Words don't just express what you feel, they create the environment in which your life unfolds. They are blueprints, they are commands, they are confessions wrapped in vibration. There is no such thing as neutral language. Every sentence, every phrase, every declaration either builds something or breaks something. Your body hears what you say. Your mind internalizes it. Your relationships reflect it. Even your opportunities respond to it. You've said, "I can't," so often you've begun to believe it. You've repeated, "I'm tired," so many times your bones have started carrying exhaustion like it's a birthright. You've whispered, "I'm not ready," until your future stopped knocking altogether. And yet you wonder why your garden yields only thorns. But the good news is this: you can plant again. You can uproot what no longer serves you and begin speaking with holy intention. You can stop cursing your own field and start blessing your days. You can begin to sow life, love, favor, clarity, joy. You can call in what has been held back by aligning your mouth with what your spirit truly desires. Because you were not created to echo your fears. You were created to declare your faith. What you say over your life matters. What you whisper over your mornings, what you confess in your disappointments, what you mutter to yourself in quiet rooms, these are not throwaway lines. They are living declarations. You are either speaking drought or rain. You are either affirming the lie or affirming the promise. And July 1st, this sacred threshold is the perfect time to reset your language, to reframe your world by reframing your words. It's not just about being positive, it's about being prophetic. Speaking not just what you see, but what you believe is coming. Calling yourself healed while the wound is still fresh. Calling yourself whole while you're still rebuilding. Calling yourself chosen when all you've known is rejection. These are the seeds that move mountains, that break cycles, that draw favor like a magnet. Because when your words align with divine truth, they begin to activate the unseen. Don't underestimate the power of one sentence. One sentence spoken in faith can shift an entire atmosphere. One moment of sacred speech can reroute the next 6 months of your life. When you speak with conviction, you awaken dormant angels. You stir sleeping dreams. You awaken your own heart to believe again. This is how legacies are rewritten. This is how curses are broken. Not by grand gestures or eloquent speeches, but by one voice, your voice, choosing to speak what is true, what is holy, what is life-giving, even when it costs you comfort. You are not powerless. Your words are your instrument. Your mouth is your altar. And when you choose to speak as one who knows they've been heard, heaven responds. So speak carefully, speak intentionally, speak as though your future is listening, because it is. Speak like every word is a seed, because it is. And what you plant today, you will meet again. Prayer is not a performance. It is not something to be staged or polished, rehearsed or recited for the approval of people or the illusion of perfection. It is not reserved for pulpits, platforms, or public moments where words drip with poetry but lack presence. True prayer does not demand eloquence, it demands honesty. It does not wait for the right time or the perfect mood. Prayer meets you where you are, not where you pretend to be. Too many have been taught to believe that prayer is something lofty, unreachable, complicated, that it must be packaged in the right phrases, dressed in King James English, delivered with a bowed head and closed eyes, or else it won't reach heaven. But that's not truth. That's tradition wrapped in fear. The divine doesn't need your theatrics, it needs your truth, the kind that trembles in your voice, the kind that shows up messy and uncertain, The kind that says, God, I don't even know what to say right now, but I'm here. That is real prayer. You don't have to shout for heaven to hear you. You don't have to be still for the Spirit to find you. You don't have to be composed for God to come near. You don't even have to know what you need. You just have to come as you are, heart open, soul exposed, ego laid down. Prayer isn't about getting the words right. It's about getting yourself honest. It's about removing the mask you wear in the world and bringing the raw, unfiltered version of you to the altar, even if the altar is a bedroom floor soaked with tears. Prayer is not a one-way line of requests. It is communion. It is a soul-level conversation where silence speaks louder than shouting, where presence means more than perfect grammar. It's sitting with God and letting your heart be seen without filters. It's letting the grief spill over. It's whispering thanks when the world expects you to complain. It's breaking down in the middle of a sentence and knowing that's still sacred. Because heaven hears what your spirit says, even when your lips cannot form the words. Prayer is not begging. You are not a stranger at the gates. You are a child of the divine, heir to a kingdom not made by man. When you pray, you are not trying to convince God to do something. You are aligning yourself with what is already available. You are remembering who you are and whose you are. You are returning home to a truth that never left you. Prayer is not about asking for what you don't have. It's about awakening to what's already been given. Too many people perform prayer and wonder why it doesn't shift their life. They say the right things with the wrong posture. Their mouths move, but their spirits stay closed. They speak from fear, not from faith. They recite, but they don't connect. And the divine doesn't respond to words. It responds to alignment, to sincerity, to reverence, to the trembling voice that says, I trust you, even through tears. That is power. Because prayer is the most intimate act of surrender. It is where control dies and peace begins. It is where striving ceases and stillness enters. When you pray with intention, you are not just speaking into the air. You are shifting the unseen. You are moving energy. You are opening portals. You are realigning your spirit with the very source of creation. And in that alignment, things begin to happen. Not always immediately, not always loudly, but always powerfully. Prayer doesn't have to sound holy to be holy. It only needs to come from a place that's real, whether whispered through clenched teeth, shouted in agony, or spoken in the soft breath between sobs. Every word, every silence, every groan is sacred. Heaven does not need performance. Heaven needs your presence, your truth, your surrender. And when you give it, prayer will not only change your situation, it will change you. There is a sacred order in this universe, an invisible structure that holds everything in rhythm, from the rising of the sun to the falling of your tears. It is not chaos. It is not random. It is divine design. And when your spirit, your thoughts, your words, and your actions fall into alignment with that divine design, when you match the vibration of heaven, then heaven moves and earth cannot help but respond. We've been told that life is all about hustling, grinding, pushing through. We've been trained to believe that success comes only by effort, by force, by noise. But the greatest shifts don't happen through struggle alone. They happen through alignment. When your soul stops wrestling and starts agreeing with the order of heaven, when your heart beats in time with the wisdom of the Spirit, then doors open without you pounding. Then people appear who were already prepared to bless you. Then peace enters rooms where you once only felt tension. Alignment is not passivity. It is not sitting back and waiting for life to figure itself out. No, alignment is intentional. It is spiritual posture. It is choosing to live in such a way that everything you do and say echoes the frequency of your Creator. When you walk in alignment, you're not chasing favor. You're magnetizing it. You're not begging for blessings. You're standing where blessings were already assigned to meet you. When you align with heaven, your yes carries weight. Your no becomes clearer. Your voice gains authority, not because it's loud, but because it's aligned. You don't need to fight for a seat at tables where your presence was divinely ordered. You don't need to twist yourself to be accepted by people who were never meant to walk your path. Alignment teaches you that divine timing is not late, it's exact. And when it shows up, it needs you ready, not busy imitating who you're not. You see, the problem is never whether heaven is speaking. The problem is whether you're positioned to hear. You can't walk in divine power while living in constant contradiction. You can't pray for peace and keep entertaining chaos. You can't declare healing and still cling to every wound. Alignment is the discipline of letting go of anything that misguides your spirit or muddies your purpose. It's choosing silence over noise, truth over comfort, obedience over opinion. And when you do that, when you truly align, life starts to feel different. Not easier, but clearer. You recognize the distractions for what they are. You stop being impressed by what doesn't feed your soul. You lose the desire to explain yourself to people who never had the capacity to understand you. Your decisions become anchored, not reactive. You begin to trust that everything that belongs to you will come to you without force. That's alignment. When heaven and earth move together, miracles happen. Breakthroughs that defy logic, rest that makes no sense in the middle of a storm, wisdom that flows through you like a river, even though you never studied the map. Because heaven doesn't need your resume, it needs your readiness. Earth doesn't respond to your panic, it responds to your positioning. Nature knows this truth. The birds don't beg for their food, they follow instinct. The flowers don't force themselves to bloom, they open when the season is right. They live in complete trust of divine order. And yet we, crowned with consciousness, doubt that same order for our lives. But alignment is the language of peace. It's the rhythm of faith. And when you learn to live from that place, not just visit it when life is hard, then the world around you begins to shift. People may say you've changed. That's fine, because alignment always looks like rebellion to those still tied to dysfunction. But what they call rebellion, heaven calls return. A return to your design, a return to clarity, a return to the power that was yours all along, buried under layers of trying too hard, pleasing too much, running too fast. We live in a world addicted to motion, constant doing, endless scrolling, relentless proving. We are praised for our productivity, for how much we can accomplish before the sun goes down, for how fast we can move from task to task without losing our breath. But there comes a point when movement becomes noise, when speed becomes avoidance, when activity becomes a disguise for emptiness. And in those moments, what your soul needs is not more action, but stillness. Not a vacation, not a nap, not even silence, but stillness. Stillness is not the absence of sound. It is not sitting still while your mind races through worries and what-ifs. Stillness is deeper than quiet. It is surrender. It is the sacred ceremony where your spirit says, I am enough without the doing. I am whole without the performance. I am present without the mask. Stillness is where you stop running from yourself and finally sit with the parts of you that have been calling for your attention. There are things you will never hear until you become still. Not because God is withholding truth, but because your life is too loud to receive it. Divine instruction rarely shouts. It comes like breath, like wind, like a whisper on the edges of your heart. And if you don't learn to quiet the noise of the world, you will miss the instructions your next season is depending on. You will keep moving, keep striving, keep grinding, never realizing you're walking in circles around a breakthrough that's been waiting in the stillness. You cannot rush revelation. You cannot schedule peace. You cannot manufacture clarity. These things are given in stillness. They rise like incense when the soul is unhurried, when your hands stop reaching, when your heart stops grasping, when your mind stops trying to make sense of everything. That is when the truth finds you, not because you chased it, but because you made room for it to enter. Stillness is not laziness. It is not retreat. It is not weakness. Stillness is power under control. It is the quiet confidence that knows you don't have to force what's already yours, that you don't need to compete for what's already been assigned to your name, that you don't have to exhaust yourself proving your worth when your worth was already declared by something higher than human validation. Stillness is where you stop begging for what you already carry. The world will tell you to keep going, keep building, keep chasing, but your spirit knows when it's time to pause. And if you don't honor that call to stillness, your body will force you to. Your heart will grow weary. Your thoughts will scatter. Your peace will leak out in places where your soul once overflowed. But if you can learn the rhythm of sacred stillness, you will be replenished not by sleep, but by presence. There is a moment in stillness where you come face to face with your fears, your unspoken grief, your hidden longings. And though it may be uncomfortable, it is also where healing begins. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel, and you cannot feel fully when your life is cluttered with constant doing. Stillness allows you to listen to what hurts, to hold space for what's tender, to welcome the parts of you that you've long pushed away. It is there that your soul breathes again. In stillness, you return to your center. You remember that before you were anything to anyone, you were already everything to the one who created you. You reconnect with the part of you that doesn't need to hustle to be holy, the part of you that doesn't need to earn rest. It simply receives it as sacred. Stillness is not a break from life. It is life in its purest, most aligned form. It is where you stop surviving and start being. No music, no audience, no applause, just breath, just presence, just truth. And in that space, you find what movement could never give you: peace that surpasses understanding, clarity that doesn't require confirmation, strength that isn't noisy but anchored. Prayer is often misunderstood as a mere list of requests, a transaction between the soul and the divine. We've been taught to treat it like a spiritual shopping cart. Ask for health, ask for peace, ask for breakthrough, ask for protection. And yes, asking is a part of it. The Creator welcomes the honest desires of your heart. But there are some prayers that do more than request. They unlock. They do not beg for something to happen. They open what was already prepared. They do not seek permission. They turn keys that grant access. There are prayers that shift atmospheres, not because of their volume, but because of their alignment. Prayers rooted not in fear, but in identity. Prayers spoken not from a place of panic, but from a place of sacred knowing. These are the prayers that echo through heaven's halls and shake open doors you didn't even know were there. They are not about formula, they are about frequency. When you pray from the deep well of who you are, when your voice carries the sound of surrender, of reverence, of alignment, heaven recognizes you.